Deep Sky Derelicts is a sci-fi turn-based strategy RPG with roguelike and deck building elements that will have you leading a squad of 3 scavengers through deep space giant derelict hulks filled with alien creatures, crazy robots, and other scavengers on a search for loot, money, and data on the location of a long-lost mothership. The definitive edition of the game includes the 2 DLCs, New Prospects and Station Life. So if what you're seeing and hearing sounds interesting, join me after the upcoming call to action for an in-depth look at what Deep Sky Derelicts Definitive Edition has to offer. If this is the first time on my channel, welcome. I'm Steven Nonsense, geek culture analyst, deck builder extraordinaire. I bring you indie RPG strategy and city builder reviews. So make sure to subscribe if you enjoy what I'm trying to build here. If you're already a subscriber, welcome back, and remember to click that bell button, it really helps a lot. At first glance, Deep Sky Derelicts takes at least some of its aesthetic cues from Darkest Dungeon. In fact, it could be roughly described as Darkest Dungeon in space, but it adds its own twist by framing things in comic book panels. This must have meant an insane amount of time, effort, and skill put into drawing any number of variations for each unit in the game, and that dedication is visible on screen, because even after playing the game for 40 hours, the panels and backgrounds don't get boring. The basic gist of the game is that you're controlling a bunch of mercenaries or scavengers on a quest for the location data of a mythical mothership. And that's as much as the game tells you, and frankly, all you need to know, since the story is not the driving force here. Deep Sky Derelicts has 3 main gameplay components: exploration, combat, and team customization. Those are its driving force. The main thing you'll be doing in the game will be exploring said Deep Sky Derelicts, which are super reminiscent of the space hulks of Warhammer 40,000 fame.
The Judgment of Carrion.
Long abandoned giant ships that are simply floating through space, becoming home to who knows what. All of these will be procedurally generated and progressively more difficult as your scavengers gain levels. Exploring, however, does come at a cost, an energy cost. Energy is your main exploration resource. Every time you move, a certain amount of energy is used up. Similarly, your actions during combat will also eat it up. So keeping an eye on your reserves and making sure you have plenty of backup batteries is paramount to your team not dying. Energy works kind of like a roguelike food mechanic. However, Deep Sky Derelicts goes further than simply rebranding a hunger mechanic and offers 3 ways of exploring: stealth, normal, and rush. You'll be expending different amounts of energy in each mode. Stealth mode is the most costly, but it will allow you to ambush enemies. Normal mode has the default energy cost and neither party will get the one up on the other, while in rush mode your team will use up the least amount of energy but will be ambushed by the enemy. It's all up to you when to use which. As I mentioned earlier, the levels, or derelicts in this case, are procedurally generated, and the same stays true for missions and loot. The missions tend to be simple fetch quests, gather X number of space worm intestines, that sort of stuff. And even the overarching quest is a chained fetch quest itself. But the important thing is that the game rewards the in-depth exploration of each derelict. There are quite a few side quests you can get from the pub, and some which you can find on the derelicts themselves. You might find some really odd ones. For instance, I once found a super bored AI who just wanted to fuck with other people on the derelict for its own amusement. Again, the missions will be randomly generated, so who knows what you'll find. One super useful exploration feature I suggest you use and upgrade is your scanner. It allows you to see the contents of neighboring rooms, at the expense of some energy, of course. I honestly think this mechanic is the dev's homage to Aliens, and it does a good job at that. Combat is squad-centric and turn-based. Depending on your team makeup, you'll have a bunch of abilities at your disposal to protect, heal, and buff your team, and all around debuff and damage your enemies. And the same is true for them. Enemies can be biological or robotic, and there are various class abilities which will affect each of these types in particular. Ideally, you don't focus on just one because that might prove to be an issue in some fights. You access these abilities via each member's deck of cards, and I feel I should mention that as opposed to other similar card-centric mechanics, There is no limit to the number of cards your squad can have in their hand at any one time. You should also know that there are no mechanics that will mill cards out of your hand, but there are a couple that will help you in case you're not holding any, but it will cost you energy. Your main method of team customization is the deck building mechanic. Each item that you outfit to your team members will generally come with at least one ability card. The items also have their own stats, so oftentimes you'll have to make a choice between an item with really great cards but not awesome stats, or the other way around. You will have a wide variety of weapons and class-specific gear to choose from, items allowing you the most freedom when it comes to deciding which types of builds your team goes with. The second feature that allows for customizing your class builds are the skill trees. Each class has a dual skill tree which will influence how you play with each of those classes, and you can mix and match between the two, so there's a lot of flexibility in terms of your class builds built into the skill trees themselves. Team customization doesn't end there. Deep Sky Derelicts allowing you to also implant your members with a couple of augmentations. These aren't as far-reaching or detailed as the previous features, but they can work great as buffs when you want to really specialize your team. And the last customization feature is the game's crafting mechanic. This one is arguably the most hit and miss since it relies on randomly rolling stats, but it can be great when you need to upgrade a particular piece of gear and there is nothing within your level range to purchase. That will sometimes happen. There's also the option of upgrading various features of your team, from your max energy supply to the number of rooms that you scan and several other things, but those have less to do with customizing your team and more with generally upgrading them to better face the progressively increasing threat. There are plenty of classes to choose from and they don't really fit the general archetypes that one might expect from RPGs. Hell, even the medic class does way more interesting things than just heal the team. The rest of the classes are Leader, Technician, Scrapper, Miner, Inventor, Tracker, and Bruiser. And they all have their own particularities which will dictate how to best use them and will interact differently with all the other classes. There's a lot of variety here, lots of things to try, and there are also 3 versions of skins for each of the classes, just to help a bit with the aesthetic customization to not make each playthrough look too samey. And rest assured that there will be several playthroughs because you will unavoidably lose some squads along the way. As you explore more derelicts, they become steadily more challenging. Besides the types of enemies becoming more difficult to deal with, the derelicts themselves become dangerous. Some rooms will have traps, which you may be able to avoid depending on your squad makeup, and you will be confronted with an increasingly varied range of effects that will be present in various parts of the ships. You'll find areas that have been irradiated, that have low gravity, power surges, all of which will affect your party and the enemy if you happen to fight in those rooms. The types of enemies vary from floating iBots to space worms of various dimensions, weird alien races, other scavenger teams, and pirates, to space zombies. Sometimes the space zombies will attack the space station that is your base, and you'll have to pitch in and help defend against the several waves of attackers. The music is nice, atmospheric and moody, a very low-key sort of space techno for lack of a better moniker. Deep Sky Derelicts is one of those titles that blends a lot of features and influences and manages to get the quantities just right, both in terms of theme as well as gameplay. Granted, the Definitive Edition is a considerably different experience than the game I played 2 years ago while it was still in early access, but it's also great to see that all that development time has been used to continually polish the experience into what it is now. Thematically speaking, Deep Sky Derelicts takes ideas from Warhammer 40k's Space Hulks, adds in some alien vibes, sprinkled with a little bit of Dead Space here and there, to produce its own brand of dark sci-fi setting. Mechanically speaking, the deck building is solid, exploration is interesting, and the replayability factor is off the charts considering how many variations of the various moving parts exist. In case you're interested in other roguelike dungeon crawler games, make sure to stop by my roguelike playlist, which you should see on screen right about now. You won't regret it. Deep Sky Derelicts Definitive Edition gets my nonsense seal of approval. You can find the PC version on GOG and Steam. I'll post the links in the description. Let me know in the comments what you think of Deep Sky Derelicts and if it's the type of game for you. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Steven Nonsense. See you next time and have a great rest of the day.